Just a warning, this episode discusses sexual abuse. If you need support, there are contact numbers in the episode notes of this podcast. Hello, I am Paula Bennett and welcome to my New Zealand Herald podcast, Ask Me Anything. Now, one thing I've learnt in life is it's never too late to learn something new. So on this podcast, I talk to people from all walks of life to hear about how they got to where they are and get some advice and guidance on some of life's biggest questions. Today, someone who has been a big name in our media since the 90s, Australian-born Kiwi journalist and broadcaster Ali Moore, has hosted the news, Fair Go, 7 Sharp, Breakfast, as well as stints on talkback radio and in-print journalism. Recent times, Ali has been known for her work on the Me Too movement, which includes co-founding the charity Tika to help survivors of sexual harm. Ali has released a memoir that is very personal. The book is called No Words for This. Ali, thanks for coming in.
Kia ora.
How are you?
Thank you, Paula, for having me. And thank you for saying pronouncing my name correctly. Nobody ever does.
Oh, how do they say it?
Oh, well, they take a stab at it, really. Mao, Mo. More,
I think I've heard you say it a number of times over the years. Okay,
over 30 years.
Shall I ease us in on some quick fires?
Sure.
What's top of the bucket list?
Oh,
No money. No, money's not the problem. Time's not the problem. What would we do?
Oh, okay. So in 2020, we had a trip, myself and my partner, we had a trip booked to Europe. We were going sailing in the Greek islands, and you know what happened in 2020, and we still haven't been 5 years later. So that would be number one.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Greece and Spain, actually.
Yeah.
Where I've never been.
And Greece is amazing with the boating like that because you literally pull right up into the town.
Oh, God.
And then just
Stop.
hop off. And I haven't done it, but I've got friends that do it all the time and they just love it. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
A morning person these days. Never used to be. But you know, I turned 60 in February. I'm in bed by 8:39. So yeah, morning.
Yeah, it's funny. It's definitely an age thing.
Yeah.
I would have always said night owl until about 10 years ago.
Yeah,
and
same.
it's like, yeah, definitely.
That's what you got to look forward to, people.
Okay. Now, Ali, this book is not what I expected. Yes, it shocked me, but I also found it one of the most compelling reads, actually, that I've had for quite a long time.
Oh, thank you.
And that I genuinely couldn't put it down, and I'm sure it's going to shock many people. So we are going to delve more into the secrets you share and speaking out a bit later. But first, let's chat about some other aspects of your life. So you say you were, grew up in Melbourne, and you say you were bullied as a child.
I was.
Yeah, were you?
Yes, quite badly, because you know what kids are like. If you've got anything different about you, particularly about the way you look, you know, they winkle onto that pretty quickly. And I had ears that stuck out. And I don't mean just a little bit.
Really?
At right angles from my head. And yeah, I was really badly bullied for 10 years from the time I started school until the age of 15. When I had surgery.
Did you get support from family and things?
No.
And teachers? No.
No, oh, my sister helped me a little bit. Lisa, my older sister, used to kind of beat up kids in the playground if things got too bad. But no, there's a scene in the book where my dad tries to deal with the situation with humour, which just kind of made it worse.
Yeah.
He was cracking jokes on behalf of my ears, so no. And I don't remember getting any support at school. I mean, this was the 1970s, mid-70s. So
Do we think it would be different now?
I hope so.
Sorry,
some people in the studio are shaking their heads. Maybe not. And that's sad.
And just knowing that you're going to get that level of support and as a parent trying to fight for it for your children.
Yeah.
You know, it would be pretty tough for some people out there. You talk in the book that, you know, most girls were going into teaching and nursing, which was still when I was there only about 5 years. I'm about 5 years younger than you. But you went into journalism. Why?
Well, my grandfather was a journalist and my father was a journalist. So it was kind of the family trade. Neither of my two sisters wanted to have anything to do with it, but it was in my consciousness, my brain from when I was very, very little. And combine that with the fact that I have no mathematical brain at all, like zero. English and the use of language was very important to me from very early on. You know, my first memories are of scribbling stuff down in kind of those lined exercise books.
Yeah.
So it felt very natural to me. And by the age of 12, I'd kind of made up my mind.
You sort of talk about the belief that journalists can remove the emotions from a story, their own emotions. Do you think that? Because we're getting more and more emotive, aren't we?
That's what we are taught. Well, that's what, I mean, I'm real old school.
Yeah.
Right. I did my training in the very early 1980s, and I did a cadetship, which is a long ago concept that's a bit like an apprenticeship in a trade. So, you know, that ethos of perfect objectivity was drilled into me right from the beginning. And in fact, before I started training as a journalist, it was drilled into me by my father. So I eventually, as I grew up and progressed as a journalist, I realised that it's a bit more nuanced than that. I think that, you know, journalists are not automatons who have no feelings or opinions. The important thing is that when you're filing a story, a news story, that you can put those feelings aside and not let them colour your reporting.
Yeah. Actually, you know, obviously just knowing Guy Espiner through his political reporting, he would say when I'm writing a story or I'm you know, doing the feed, he said, you know, would I, if I had the story and it was about the other side, would I still run it? You know, to make sure he didn't have bias, you know, and I just sort of, and I quite admired that. But I do feel like, you're watching what's happening around journalism at the moment and the media and all the rest of it.
Hugh Alley pulling a face. Yes.
Because it is horrific. And it's kind of, I do think as well, I think it's kind of scary that we might end up with only one news station at some stage, or, you know what I mean? Like, you can just see it shrinking so much.
Deeply upsetting for somebody like me, yeah.
In what way?
Because I do believe that a strong media is crucial for any democracy, and I think that we're really going to regret it when we don't have it.
Yeah. And we can't tell our stories, right? You know, no journalists in rural and smaller town New Zealand that can get around, and it just feels like it's going to get, you know, like, so from that perspective of shrinking, but equally the standard that we're going to do to give
true. Well,
to our whole country.
I started out in the most rural of rural towns in the outback of Victoria, regional Victoria, and the local newspaper, the Warwick-Nabil Herald, was crucial part of the town. And being able to disseminate information and tell local stories, absolutely crucial. And it is a tragedy. I'm not a overly emotive person, but I think it is a tragedy.
Yeah, it is.
What is happening.
You talk in the book about meeting Simon when he was a Kontiki guide. You were on Kontiki, weren't you, when you...
I was on my OE on a 3-week Kontiki tour, yes.
Yeah. And... I mean, what was it like working together, reading the news?
We had a really good professional relationship, really enjoyable. We both had a lot of respect for each other's, ultimate respect for each other's abilities. We had the same drive for perfection, so we were we used to drive people nuts by reading the bulletin out loud in the newsroom for, you know, the hours before the bulletin, and you'd get kind of sidelong glances from from other people in the newsroom, but you can't go on air without having said the words that are going to come up on the autocue. You know, you can't expect to do a good job if you don't if you don't do that.
Yeah.
So, we had a fantastic professional relationship.
What was it like going through a public divorce? Because everyone, of course, knew you were together and loved you as a couple, if you like.
I think the interest was higher because we had been a news-reading couple, and that was really unusual, if not unprecedented in this country. I don't know. I don't think there would have been quite as much. In fact, no, I know there wouldn't have been nearly as much interest in the story if Simon had, in another alternative universe, continued with his law career, for example. So I just think it was a circumstantial thing.
And would people talk to you about it in the supermarket? Or, you know what I mean? Like, would they comment on it?
Yeah.
It's weird, isn't it? I know.
People are pretty brazen. I was I'll give you just one example. I was in the Meadowbank Countdown one day, and I dared to go out without makeup on, and I had a baseball cap on over probably greasy hair. And I was just dashing into the supermarket, and I walked past two women coming the other way down the aisle, and they walked past me, and then one of them doubled back and she ripped my baseball cap off my head and sort of kind of pushed her face into mine, and then turned to her friend and said, "Oh, it looks nothing like her," and then threw the baseball cap in the trolley and walked back to her mate.
Oh my goodness.
Random things like that happened all the time, And I got letters, people wrote letters expressing their disappointment. And
it's amazing,
people feel they have a stake in it because of that parasocial relationship that relationship that you feel you have with somebody that's in your living room every evening, right? Yeah.
Well, I'll give you mine of more recent times. Husband was in the shop queuing up to get his lotto ticket while I sat out on, it was in Arrowtown, and I sat out on the little brick wall and ate my ice cream. And so I'm just sitting there and I'm enjoying the sunshine, and this slightly older couple walk past, and of course they just dead stop, and he sort of bumps into the back of her, and he goes, "What are you doing?" And she goes, I don't know that woman, who's that? We know her, and they're literally maybe a metre away from me. It's not like, so I just keep eating the ice cream because I'm just not interested. And she's like, "No," and he goes, "Oh, I don't think so." And then she's like, no, she's famous, I recognise her from, something. And then he goes, "Oh,
I can hear you."
No, but then he goes, "Oh, yes, I think she's married to a politician." And they walked off, and I was sitting there, and my husband came out, and I just went, "Deputy frickin' Prime Minister did all the work, and you still get I must be married to a politician." And so as they walked out, I was shouting, "No, I was the politician."
And then you feel a little bit pathetic.
Then I did feel really pathetic. But I just took such umbrage that my husband was going to get credit for, Okay, now then you being outed by a Sunday paper, Ali Moore's Lady Love, just how devastating must that be? I mean, it's just, and you had to ring everyone the night before, right?
So
you spend your Saturday afternoon ringing people.
Yeah, there were a number of people. Of course, my close circle, my parents, my sisters, my close friends knew about my new relationship, and this is 7 or 8 months on from when my husband and I had broken up. The relationship was very new, so not everybody knew, obviously.
Yeah.
And it was a new and very precious relationship. And, and I had to ring, I had to make, about 15 phone calls, one after the other, to just to say, there is a story coming out tomorrow, I'm told, and some of what you read will be true and some of it will not be true. But I thought you better hear it from me.
Yeah, nice.
And so, the spread of reactions was really interesting.
Yeah. How did Carleen, because as you say, new relationship, and then she
is an incredibly private person who didn't know who I was, had no idea who I was when she met me.
Yeah.
And really, bit surprised she put up with all of that and stuck around.
And for your children, I mean, let's talk a bit about that. You know, you're in the public eye, you've chosen a public career, you know, you're on, you know, as you say, you were on our TVs every night, you know, we feel like we know you, you're familiar, you know, and all the rest of it. And then, but how do you protect your privacy through that? And how can we protect our privacy?
You make very conscious choices. That was quite an easy one for us. So when I was pregnant, with our first child, I stopped doing any publicity and I refused to be photographed because that to me was a very private family time. When my daughter was 3 months old, I got a call from Wendell Nissen at work one night. She was the editor of Women's Day at the time. And she said, "Ellie, were you in a cafe with your baby in Mount Eden today?" And I said, "Yes, I was." And she said, "Well, I've just been offered a set of photographs that show the baby's face and you in extreme close-up that were taken from across the road. I've paid $5,000 for them. I'll give them to you if you like." Oh. And I said, "I will be over at 10 o'clock tonight after my shift to pick them up." And then because we were determined never to expose our children to any of that. And then I just felt like I was being followed everywhere. Yeah. And so 3 months later, when I'd nearly lost my mind about it, we decided that we would do one photo shoot with the baby and then it would be done and dusted.
Old news.
We did.
Yeah, done.
And then we had a lot of discussions and decided that once the children turned 4 years old and were beginning to, just about to go to school and were beginning to have, start their life, we would never expose them to the media. And we have stuck to that.
Yeah.
I have stuck to that. You know, even in these days of social media, I don't post anything that features my children, who are now fully grown adults, without explicitly asking their permission first.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I must admit, I am bewildered by the amount of exposure that people are willing to subject their children to on social media these days. Like, I'm talking about extreme cases. Yeah, it's
quite something, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then, you sort of say that you felt like you were being followed all the time. I mean, certainly when the new relationship came out, you were being followed.
I was.
Your children felt like they might be. Like it was really extreme. Well, it just seemed extreme.
It was.
I must admit, as someone that was around then, I think I probably saw a headline and then just didn't think of it again because I don't mean to be rude, but it was just so irrelevant to me, right? It's none of my business and not even that interesting. So
that's the thing that I was forced to face it at that time and think quite deeply about. I think parts of the media often wrongly conflate what is in the public interest and therefore probably a good thing to publish and what the public might be interested in. Now, those two things for a journalist that takes their ethical responsibilities seriously are two completely separate things. They're not the same at all. But at that time, the publications doubled down and because there was a bit of an outcry after the first front pages went out of the Sunday paper and the Women's Day magazine. And they doubled down and said, our readers are interested in this. That's not necessarily
a
ethical.
Reason. Yeah, and a reason that you go and, sort of try and rip your family apart.
Yeah. So, a lot of those people, Paula, have approached me and apologised in the years since, and I've absolutely accepted their apologies. They've assured me that this would never happen these days, which I think is a wonderful thing.
Except in recent times we've seen Rebel Wilson.
Yes, that's right. So I naively assumed that it wouldn't happen. But then in 2016, in the Athletes' Village at the Olympics in Rio, there were journalists combing through Grindr to try and find athletes who were active on the app so that they can out them. And then Rebel Wilson was outed by the Sydney Morning Herald in 2022. So actually, it is still happening, unfortunately.
One last question before we take a break. So you come across as very serious, although you're not today, but we are going to get a bit more serious after the break.
But am I?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm asking.
No, I'm a bit of a ditz, actually. As my family and friends would tell you. And I think that comes from not the ditzy part, but the positive outlook always comes from my mum. I've actually realised in the writing of this book, because when you write a book like this, it's a unique opportunity to kind of rise up out of your life and get the helicopter view of the whole of it. Wow. And it forces you really to examine what you thought may have been unrelated stuff, and you see a pattern forming. And I have realised how much I am like my mum, which is actually, considering what happens in the book, quite a good thing. In that her stoicism and her kind of get on with it, Protestant work ethic, don't complain unless you're prepared to do something about it attitude, she passed on to me.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
But your warmth comes out in the book. I mean, I don't know you.
Well, that's good.
But I certainly...
There's some heavy themes in the book.
There is, so but your warmth came out, and certainly your relationship with your children and, and with your former partner and your current, I felt that honesty and that warmth. And there was a part of me that was just like, you're going to see your daughter. I wouldn't mind coming and having a glass of wine. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
I sort of got a sense that of you.
Great.
So you did,
my children are the most wonderful human beings. I'm so proud of them. It's not a very kind of 2020 thing to say, and I've been very committed to my career and am very committed to my current work because it's important. But really, my kids are my finest work.
Yeah. And they are work.
They're
right?
wonderful.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we are going to talk about your decision to speak out around the incident that really did blow your family apart. So welcome back to Ask Me Anything. Today my guest is Ali Moore, and we are chatting about her very honest memoir, No Words for This. I said earlier, Ali, that the book came as a shock, and I'm sure it will to those, and you should go and read it, by the way. Go and read it in its totality. I've already lent my copy out to someone because I just absolutely loved it. So, look, you've talked about things that you've never made public before, and you revealed that you were sexually abused by your dad. That decision must have been hard to go public with it, was it?
Yes, those decisions are always difficult. And I'm hearing a lot of this, Paula, what you just said, that you were shocked or surprised. You shouldn't be, because this is so common. You'll have heard that statistic, 1 in 3 women, 1 in 7 men experience sexual harm in their lifetime. That's 900, these are official police figures, 930,000 New Zealanders have experienced, not necessarily exactly what I experienced, but some kind of sexual harm in their lifetimes. It's almost 1 million people. So the surprising thing is not that it happened at all. The surprise comes from the fact that we don't talk about it enough. It is the last big taboo subject in our society, and it shouldn't be. So that's why I wrote the book.
Yeah.
Right? That's why I made these revelations, because this is a conversation we must have. And I believe it's a conversation we can have. So if you think 10 or 15 years ago, we were, as a society, not able to talk about domestic violence. And then a bunch of incredibly committed women have worked over that time to change that around completely and make it a national conversation that we can have, to the point where one of the biggest retailers in the country sponsors Women's Refuge.
Yeah.
I believe we can do that with sexual harm as well.
Because it's not your
You just
shame.
got to try. No. So that's...
Because we do take that shame on board. You know, like we do. And particularly as women, we're quite good at internalising and the sort of blame and shame sort of side of it. And I think you speaking out as well as part of that bravery of saying, actually, this is not my shame.
Not just women, all survivors of sexual harm that I have spoken to, and there are some men in there as well, and there have been hundreds, have said at some point in our interactions that they feel some kind of level of shame and self-blame.
Yeah.
And my response to them was always, you know it's not your fault, don't you? So I was able to apply that to myself as well, which was helpful. But, you know, the first thing we did when we started working on Tika, the charity, was find out why so many people don't report. So only 7% of people ever report what's happened to them. And it turns out that there are some major barriers. One is that they can't quite name what it was, and they certainly don't know where it sits under legislation, because who knows about, much about the law. And the second one is unwarranted shame and self-blame. And the third one is that they think nobody will believe them. Yeah. So those are the barriers that we are trying to tackle.
And you told your children?
Yeah, I did. So my I explain this in the book, but my ethos as a mother has always been to tell my kids the truth about the big things in life, which has led me into some awkward situations. Like my daughter is a very bright person, was a very bright child, and at 6 or 7 asked me point blank, is Santa Claus actually you? Oh. Which was a really interesting way to phrase it, and I couldn't wriggle out of it. So I said yes, and basically ruined her childhood because I was so committed to telling my kids the truth. Yeah. So they eventually did realise that something was awry with the family, and asked me, and I told them. Yeah. And they were incredibly supportive.
The first time you talked about it was a phone call from your sister. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, so I'd never spoken about it to anybody in my life. And I was, until 2018, and I was into my 50s by then. And I was at home. I was home alone, thank goodness. Everybody else was out at the time. And I got a couple of missed calls from my sister, and then a text all in capitals asking me to call her, which is unlike my sister. And so I called her, and she revealed some information that I didn't know. And we talked about it for what we had experienced for the first time in our lives, yeah.
Wow.
It was a very dramatic way for the information to be revealed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it sparked something truly wonderful. I want to emphasise this, Paula. So before she called me that day, I'd never spoken about it, and probably was likely never to speak about it. And because I thought I was the only one, and therefore I was alone and isolated. And perpetrators do that by design, right? They tell you don't tell anybody because something bad will happen. And when you've been indoctrinated like that as a child or even as an adult, you believe it and you keep stum. But on that night, everything changed because I realised then that I had community, that I wasn't alone. Yeah. And that is, I can't even describe how powerful that is for a survivor to know that there are others.
Tell me about your relationship with your parents before that phone call. You know, like you had been abused. you had been, that was just horrific, and yet you maintained a relationship with your mother and your father, and actually sought his approval at times career-wise, didn't you? It's...
Well, he was the greatest influence in terms of my development as a journalist early on. And I've had to, and that's undeniable, and I suppose the way I think about it now is that I can recognise the skill that he passed on to me. And yes, his opinion mattered for many, many years. His professional opinion mattered. But that sits over here.
Yeah.
I recognise his skill. And over here on the other side, I recognise his character.
Yeah.
And those are two very different things.
Yeah. Because there will be victims of abuse out there now that are going, I've still got a relationship at some level with my abuser, and trying to reconcile that in their minds. And even as you say, part of that, will someone believe me? It's like, well, if it was true, then...
Well, this is nuanced stuff.
Yeah.
So let's say if, like me, you've been harmed by a whānau member, then you might not want to see that person go to jail. And that will keep you quiet because you know that if you speak up, you may be setting something in motion that you lose control of and destroy your family completely. And on top of that, you may be getting pressure from, other people in the family to, to not say too much because you don't want the cousins to know, or, families are complex.
Very complex. And navigating your way through that is really complex. And I suppose that's the message that I hope sort of goes out there, is there isn't a black and white answer. It is a nuanced, complex relationship.
People need to have options. And that's one thing we're doing with the charity, is that you have a number of pathways. If you sign up with Tika, you can choose, if you register and you get a match, so a group is brought together that has a common perpetrator, the group can then choose a criminal prosecution or a reporting to police, specialised police, a civil case. They can choose restorative justice, a disciplinary tribunal perhaps, like the teaching council if the perpetrator was a teacher. I think restorative justice will probably be a big one. And they can choose, in the end, if they want to, just to meet and support each other. And I think that will be an option that a lot of people find really attractive.
Yeah.
Because as I said, knowing that you're not alone and having that support from somebody who's experienced the same thing is really powerful.
Tell me, that relationship with your parents is what, I suppose I'm sort of banging on about it a bit, but after you've had that conversation with your sister and with whānau, you're not alone, then you are navigating elderly parents with all of the complexities of that, as well as this, this massively deep, reckoning that's sort of happening to you all. And it's just, hence I couldn't put the book down, because I was just like, and because there was no right or wrong answer in my head, you know what I mean? Like I certainly wasn't judging. I certainly had no idea what I would do in that circumstance,
And every survivor's reaction and response and story and journey, God help me using that word, is different, right? You cannot second guess, or there's no right or wrong way to do it. By the time we reconciled what had happened, my parents were elderly and needing to make some decisions. And, the urge, depending on your circumstances and how you approach life and how you feel about it, as I said, every survivor story is different. In my case, I recognised that my parents still needed support. And particularly we've protected my mum, who has quite advanced dementia. But even that hasn't ended up in a very good way because of my father's need to retain control over everything. So We've tried.
Yeah.
We've tried really hard as a group, as the sisters, to make sure that that they're okay. But it's been difficult.
In that context, then, was part of that deciding how to confront what happened all those years ago, was one of your main decisions around your mother and the fear of the hurt that would cause her?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Much so.
Yeah. And so how do you navigate that? I mean, you sort of say that you probably wouldn't have written this if she wasn't in advanced stages of dementia, so she's not going to read it.
No.
And she's not going to be able to. Do you think he will?
It's really not my responsibility to speak to my father's state of mind.
Yeah.
You'd have to ask him.
Yeah. Okay. And you don't have a relationship with them now?
Yes, I do.
Oh, you do?
I saw Mum a couple of weeks ago in Melbourne.
Neat. Oh, that's really, really
Yeah,
lovely.
she recognises us. She recognised my daughter. We went and saw her together, but she doesn't remember anything from kind of 3 minutes ago. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, we like to sit with her and kind of introduce memories from long ago, which she does recall, and have a bit of a gentle laugh about subjects that she's comfortable with.
Yeah.
She gets agitated if you say, "Oh yes, you saw that person yesterday, don't you remember?"
Yeah.
And then she gets a little bit upset. So you've got to, you've got to, I think, show your love by making sure she's happy and comfortable when you talk to her. Yeah.
So talk to me about Me Too, and is it part of your own experience that sort of drove you to do that investigative journalism, to dig into those stories?
No, I'd already started by the time my sister called me. I think it was more my experiences in the workplace as a woman and as a woman in the world. And there are quite a few of those experiences of harassment and attempted assault, etc., in the book. But I can tell you there are many, many, many more that didn't go in the book.
Wow.
I remember at the age of 22, going to bed after a party at a shared flat, and a young man who I'd spoken to for a minute at the party climbed into my bed.
Wow.
And I had to forcefully eject him. There's plenty of that. And almost every woman.
I was going to say, you're not alone, right? I mean, I heard myself just then say, wow. And then I was like, no, I'm not wow. We could sit here for an hour and share.
Yeah. And it was impossible to put all of them in the book because, there was probably another 60,000 words that I wrote, and my editors, said, oh, good story, Ali, but it's not relevant. So, it doesn't fit with the development of the story.
So was that the motivation to, let women know that they're not alone in the Me Too sort of stuff? Because that is what that movement did.
Me Too was I don't know whether you remember the moment that the Weinstein story broke in October 2017, because there's been a lot of backlash, which of course we all expected because the patriarchy. But that was a big moment internationally, and I just expected New Zealand women and some men to be able to participate.
Yeah.
That was my goal. I didn't want, it was like a window had opened to allow women's experiences to be brought to light. And I kind of knew that window would close eventually, and I wanted to pull as many women through it as I could while it remained open.
Yeah.
So that was the motivation. It was actually at that stage nothing to do with my own situation. But, people have asked me, how did you cope with doing that, quite difficult work at the same time that your own issue was coming to light? Wasn't that difficult? And actually, no, the work helped me deal with what I was going through in my family.
Because I was thinking that, and we're going to talk about Tika a bit more as well now. But in that, I was Minister of Child, Youth and Family as it was back then. I actually made myself the minister with government responsibility for sexual violence, because there never had been one, and it was always just kind of brought into domestic violence when it's so different. It just absolutely, there's crossover
they're
at times.
Linked,
they're linked.
Yeah.
But, for some of those. And so, and of course, it sat across multiple government departments, and everyone could kind of go, not my, not my area, and that's more police, and that's more, sits under a Ministry of Social Development, or that might sit under. And so actually trying to get that overview of what we as a government could do to support more was really important. But the reason I didn't really want to leave Child, Youth and Family, and then Prime Minister John Key said, I'm pulling you out. And I said, what? No, I'm finished my work, and I've got heaps to do, and it's something that I'm really passionate about. And he said, I'm pulling you out for your own mental health. And it wasn't until afterwards that I went, oh yeah, I was thinking about that all night, every night. And so it's there, and it's in you. And so I suppose that longer story was to sort of get to the, how do you look after you while hearing and being part of and caring and empathising and supporting. And
so I had a bit of a rocky journey with that. At the beginning of the Me Too NZ project, my team and I were given assurances that there was unlimited support available to us. We were told that at the start of almost every meeting that we had. And I didn't need that I didn't feel I needed that until it was probably 2 years later. And in 2020, I was approaching burnout, and I reached out, went through the EAP system, found a psychologist, and after 3 sessions, my counsellor phoned me and said, I've contacted the company and asked for an extension, and it's been refused.
Oh.
And I chased that with stuff for 18 months, both in person and via email from time to time. As women and as, women journalists, we don't like to, to bang on about our those kinds of challenges. But I did check in with HR from time to time, how's it going? Are you going to approve more psychological support? And they never did. And after 18 months, my boss got involved, my female boss, who I greatly admire, got involved and ordered them to. And then she said to me, Ali, just get in touch with them again. And I was like, no, I don't trust them. I no longer have the trust. So I just had to fund it myself.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that was
you
disappointing.
Need that support.
That was disappointing.
I do like the way that Parliament's changing, that you can show vulnerabilities now, and you can, because in that first few years that I was there, you could just show no vulnerability whatsoever. You just get eaten alive. I'm pleased it's sort of changing, but more support in the workplace is just an absolute. Okay, let's talk about Tika. So you've touched on it, but it's for victims of sexual violence, or
victims of sexual harm of all kinds. So harassment, assault, so anything in the criminal space, and online harm, which is of course a rapidly rising area of concern.
Yeah.
Tika is a charity. When I came out of the work at Stuff in 2023, I got together with Zoe Lawton, the barrister, and she was the only other person that had been not the only other, but one of the other people who'd been doing something formal around Me Too at the time that, back in 2018. So we knew each other. And we started together she had this concept and had been quietly working on it. And we started to look at the reasons why that figure, that 7% reporting figure Only 7 people out of 100 affected will ever report it. Why that had not moved in more than a decade? I naively had assumed that all the awareness raising would move the needle on that, and it hadn't. So we researched what the barriers were, and what we have developed and will launch in just a few months is a tech platform that people can register on. It's trauma-informed and survivor-focused. They can register. They will get immediate lawyer-client privilege, which is really important for protecting their information and making sure that they have continued trust in the platform. They put a few details in about themselves and their perpetrator, as much as they know. And the system then starts to look for a match. When there has been a match of 3 or more people, a flag is raised, and a human lawyer, Zoe, will check that it is actually, a correct match with the same perpetrator.
Wow.
And then those people will be given legal advice in their individual lanes, and that's important because if they choose a criminal route, then we don't want to run into problems with accusations of collusion or evidence, problems with evidence. But yes, they get their legal options are explained to them, and then the group will be able to decide what they want to do as a group. And then they will be supported along by our lawyers and pro bono lawyers around the country along whatever pathway they decide.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's a game changer.
Yeah. Because you can go
it's never been done before.
No.
Do you know that you cannot even at this point report sexual harm online? You have to walk into a police station or phone and speak to, I guess, a uniformed officer at the front desk.
Yeah.
And when you think about the generations of my children's age and younger, they do everything on their phone.
Yeah.
They do everything online. So being able to offer a secure platform that they can trust, that will tell them whether anybody else has been harmed by the same person, even just that step is incredibly powerful for somebody who's been unsure about what to do. But in the back of their mind, they know they're looking for some kind of accountability and justice. And that's what tika means, of course. The first thing we did was go to Te Tōra Whiri Te Reo Māori and ask for permission to use tika and whether we were using it in the right context. And they said, yes, absolutely. It means justice and right, what is right. So
it's incredible because you're right. There is nothing like it. I mean, if you're lucky, you might get access to some counselling. If you're lucky, you might be able to have someone that you can talk to. But knowing that pathway and what your options are, knowing if there's others out there, I just think is going to be
having been, the minister in charge of this sector, that there are a number of wonderful organisations in this sector who support and offer counselling and healing to survivors. And we are deeply connected in that sector, and what they tell us is this is the missing piece. You know, many of their clients, I guess they call them, need legal support.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to find.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Law firms do a lot of great pro bono work, but we'll be able to marry up those two things.
Yeah,
it's really exciting.
It is really exciting, and so
I'm passionate about it.
Yeah, no, and thank goodness you are, because it's needed, and you're stepping into a space that's just going to be great.
Oh, and it's free. Can I just say that? I keep forgetting to say that.
Good.
It doesn't cost anybody anything because it's a charity.
Yeah.
So we need support because we're a charity. So please give tika.org.nz.
There you go. Okay, and our parting segment on this podcast is I would love to know what is the best advice you've ever been given and who was it given by?
You're going to love this. So when I was on the radio, on Radio Live with Willie Jackson some years ago, I would class this as advice. He was regularly on our show advocating for Māori. Of course he was. And he regularly would get terribly abused for it. And I remember one day there was a particularly vicious number of texts and emails coming in, and when we hung up our headphones that day, I kind of shook my head and I said, like, why do you do it? And he looked at me and he said, if not me, then who?
Yeah, nice.
And that blew my hair back. And I thought, and I've kind of carried that with me.
That's nice.
Mahi, yeah.
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 Yeah. I kind of do a bit of a why not me? You know?
Yeah.
And I say it to kids. I go, school not as flash as the one down the road. You know, you're going to be the barrister or you're going to try and, own the business.
Yeah.
Why not you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a play on it, but that's all good. Okay, so the podcast is called Ask Me Anything, Ali, and so this is your opportunity if you would like to ask me something.
Okay, I'm going to ask you something. Forgive me, Paula, but I have to ask this because I've been thinking about this for years. In the mid-2010s, you gave a keynote speech at International Women's Day, and it was, I believe, if my memory serves, it was after that incident in Parliament where a bunch of female MPs had been thrown out for stating that they too were victims of sexual violence. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. And I asked you from the floor, did you think that Parliament was a sexist place? And you said, no, you didn't. Has your view changed since then? I think there's moments, and I can give experiences where it was. I think where I was at that point was like, I just saw some of the men hurting and some of the language as well. So there were definite bullies in there, and there was, and there were elements of that, but kind of, I was fat shamed on almost a daily basis. But then, with all respect, he wouldn't mind me saying, because we're friends, but so was Grant Robertson. You know what I mean? Like, so was. And so I think that's where my head was at that time, because I had been giving quite a lot of thought to it, and I did think it was sort of changing, and I could sense the change, and I think that Ardern actually brought in more change than anyone, so thank you to her for that. But I think it was more, I just thought the whole place was just this seething pit of bullying. Yeah.
And it wasn't actually just on gender, it was actually wider than that, and like when you went in there, some of the older school, they would if they thought you might be successful and but quite good at what you do, they literally just needled looking for your weakness, and they didn't just do
like
that to women.
Playground.
It's just and they're just looking for something that might, and then, that to throw you off, and you'd be about to stand up and answer a question or something, and in that chamber, you can actually throw your voice if you're clever, and you can throw your voice to a point, not too loudly, that actually almost hits the person or the 5 people around them.
Fascinating.
Not many people work that out, by the way, but you can kind of, and it can be, as you can imagine, really disarming. And, so you sort of get to steel yourself. So I think
that would throw you off your...
It could, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was sort of to throw you off your game. Oh. And it came from all sides, by the way. So I'm not going to say that this, I sat next to a colleague for a while, and his language to others was just absolutely demeaning and cruel, and I would just sit there and just say, I'm not part of this, it was just, so yeah, I think that's where my head was at that point. It was kind of like, I think this whole place is just a cesspit of bullying and nastiness.
Good answer.
Oh, okay. Thank goodness. Do I miss politics? No. Will you be running for the Mayor of Auckland? No. Ellie, thank you. Thank you for your book.
You're
thank you
most
for your
welcome.
tireless work that you're doing in this area. Thank you on behalf of all of those women and those men and those children, actually, because hopefully an adult's looking out for them differently than they might be because of what you've said and what you've done. And I think that that's really compelling. Everyone, the book's out now. I can't recommend it enough, and you want to read all of it.
So
I just mean that.
Thank
I
you.
cried 3 times.
I wanted it to be a good read as well. I'm like, there's some tough subjects in there, but I wanted it to be really readable. So I'm really pleased and honoured, Paula, that you think so.
Well, I definitely do. So there you go. That's it for another episode of Ask Me Anything. If you've enjoyed this episode, please follow Ask Me Anything on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you check out some of the past fabulous guests. I'll be back next Sunday with another wonderful person. I'm Paula Bennett. Ask Me Anything. Goodbye.